Welcome back. Today I'm going to be taking a quick look at 10 tools or accessories that you might want to get if you're a beginner to the hobby. So join me in this video as I do a quick rundown of these 10 items. Hi, I'm Matt and you're watching Model Minutes. So let's start off in reverse order. Coming in at number 10 is lighting. You see what I did there? Do you like that? So lighting's very important when you come to build your models. If you haven't got quite the right lighting in your building environment, you're going to end up perhaps making mistakes. You might find that you put things in the wrong place, or you simply use the wrong color because you haven't quite got the right shade. Lamps such as these can be quite helpful in increasing the amount of light in your workspace, but what I've got is one of these. And I made this myself. And it's called a light arch, and it uses white LED strip lights. Let's see if I can show you. And as you can see, that's very bright. And what it does is it eliminates the shadows in the center here as I work on it. And to be honest, it's quite simple. It's just a arch made out of plastic with some LED strip lights, and it cost me no more than about £20. Coming in at number 9. Something we probably all have lying around our home, and it's one of these. A pen or a pencil. So it might seem a bit obvious, but something like this is usually overlooked. You get to a certain stage in the instructions and you want to annotate where you are, or perhaps annotate a paint color like I do with the Honourable paint colors, because don't get me started. They will require a pen or a pencil to write on the instructions, and frankly it's something that you go, oh, I need that, and you can't find one. So I've always got one or two in my toolbox. Number 8, a pair of scissors. There we go. I've got my nice military-esque ones here, which I use occasionally. I don't find I use them for that much, but generally cutting out coupons from the Airfix boxes or cutting up your decal sheets. You can use a sharp knife or something else like that to do that, but scissors are designed for that job, so why not use them? Number 7, cotton buds. A very unassuming tool which I use quite frequently. These are quite handy at helping you to apply decals. They're good at rubbing off washes and even mixing paint. What I tend to do once I've used it is I cut the top off and I use it as a paint stirrer. So that's pretty handy. Number 6, tweezers. Tweezers are so helpful for getting your decals and your small little details in the right place. You can get lots of different kinds of tweezers, so find the right ones that are for you. I've got some big flat paddle ones. I've also got some really fine pointed ones which I use for different things depending on what my specific needs are. A pair of tweezers like this can usually be found in any supermarket in the beauty section. So we're about halfway through now, so let's take a little break. Before I move on to number 5, let's have a quick mention of a few things that I do use quite often, but didn't actually make it into the list. So the first thing I'd like to mention is a plastic pot. It might seem a bit obvious, any sort of recycled yogurt pot, or I think this is actually off of my cotton buds. And I use this for mixing my paint, soaking my decals, and you can even use it for washing small parts. It's a very handy accessory that often gets overlooked. Another super useful tool, clothes pegs. I quite like these ones that I've got. Don't tell my wife because I stole them from her. And they've got these sort of padded bits on there which help protect any parts that you might be holding together. So like on your fuselage of your aircraft, couple of clothes pegs on there, or on the wings perhaps, and it just holds it together. And these ones with the little cushions actually sort of prevent it from breaking the plastic, so that's quite cool. Something else worth mentioning are these little droppers, and they come out of sort of vitamins or medicine bottles if you can get them. You can buy things like this online, but mine are again recycled, and I use these primarily for putting thinners in with my paint. So I just put a few drops in where I need them, when I need them. And the last honourable mention would be something with a flat head, so like a flathead screwdriver, and that's going to be used for opening those tiny little pots of paint. But enough of that, let's get back on with the list. Coming in at number 5, Sanding sticks, also known as emery boards or nail files or just, rough cardboard. Let's take our number 8 item from the list and use that to open these. I got these quite cheaply recently in a local supermarket because my ones were running out, and it comes with a pointed tool which I could use for, I don't know, pointing things or stirring paint. But the good thing with emery boards or nail files is that they are rough on one side and slightly smoother on the other. So you've got like a coarse grade and a fine grade on there. And they are really cheap and easy to use. I tend to hold them in my hand and then rub them against the part that needs sanding, but you can also hold them on the desk and then rub across the top like that. Number 4, snippers, cutters, snips. This is a really handy tool. This kind of thing is used for cutting your parts off of the sprues. What I would recommend is getting the best one that you can afford with your budget. You don't want anything too cheap and nasty because it's probably not going to work too well. I think this came out of maybe like a starter set, like Revell do starter model tool sets, and they come with knives and sanding sticks and one of these. It's going to be okay for the job, but the more high quality ones tend to have sharper edges. And it's worth mentioning with this kind of tool is to only use it for the job that it's actually needed for. So it's really good at cutting bits off, but it's no good for, I don't know, tightening up bolts. You're going to end up breaking it. We are down to the top 3. Coming in at number 3 is this. Cutting mat. I've got an A3 self-healing cutting mat, which I use all the time, and you can probably tell because it's stained with so many different colours of paint. This mat is sort of a rubbery plastic, and it's really good because when you cut into it with a knife, it absorbs the impact from the knife, but it also then heals back over, so you can't really see where you cut. But I think primarily the main thing you need to take away from this is that it protects any surface that you're working on. So if you're new to the hobby and you're doing this at, I don't know, your mum and your dad's place, or maybe you're doing it on the kitchen table and you don't want to damage the kitchen table, make sure you put something like this down. You don't have to use one of these, but my recommendation would be to use one of these because it absorbs the impact from knives and things. Number 2. Something I use a lot of, and that is hobby knives, or scalpels as I sometimes call them. This is a multi-purpose tool in the sense that I use it for removing parts from the sprues. I use it for cleaning up parts and cutting off the extra bits of plastic. I have even been known to heat up the ends and use them to smooth things down or scrape bits off. So these are really good, and you can get lots of different blades for them. So like here, for example, I've got a nice long pointed one, and then I've got something a bit smaller and sharper. I couldn't specifically tell you which blade is for which, and I'm sure someone out there does know why there are so many different kinds of blades, but you can get sort of big box sets with loads of different blades in, and when one gets a bit dull or blunt or you break it, you can just replace it, and it's so easy to do. So a invaluable object that you will require. And finally, coming in at number 1 is the humble paintbrush. And yes, I know people are going, oh, the paintbrush? Really? Well, because you're starting out, it's your first time or whatever, you will probably have a paintbrush in the set. If you've got something like this, you're going to have a paintbrush included, and it's going to be okay. The paintbrushes that they have now are a lot better than they did in the old days, but my advice would be to go out and buy the best quality brushes that you can for your budget. They don't have to be super expensive, but I have so many of them now that they're almost a disposable tool. I can use them a few times, I can trash them up, I can not look after them particularly nicely, although there are some great ways to do that, and at some point I'll probably show you how to do that. But with a few different kinds of brush, you can get some really good and interesting results with your models. So there is stuff like this, which are the long sort of flat-headed ones, and you can see I haven't looked after that one very well at all. That is a 3/8. That's number 6. This is a number 2. And I tend to normally go for the nylon sort of ones because I like the way they retain their shape and they also bounce back. They give quite a bit of friction, but you can get different ones made from different materials. So they're not expensive. You know, you can get a pack of 4 or 5 for only a couple of pounds. You can buy individual ones for £1 or £2 in your local hobby shop. So my advice would be to get a couple when you get your first kit or whatever, and try and see which ones work best for you. Obviously, you're going to want to get something big and flat for doing big surfaces, and you'll need something fine for small parts and fine details. And that's it. Those are my top 10 and some honourable mentions for tools or accessories that you might want to get when you first start in the hobby of plastic modelling. Have I missed anything out? Can you think of anything that would be a great product to have or a tool to have? If you can, pop it in the comments down below. As always, honourable mention to my patrons over on Patreon. A massive thank you to you for the support that you give me. And to find out more about the perks that you get from being a patron, take a look at the link in the description. Don't forget that you can get into contact with me on Discord, Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. And all that's left to say is thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the workbench again, on my cutting mat with my light arch, next time.